Leaving the weak behind isn't betrayal, it's self-preservation. Jordan Peterson. Before we begin, here's a small ritual. Write in the comments one word that accurately describes your current state. Sign it, and let's get started. You're not failing because you're weak. You're failing because your environment is slowly killing you. And you've been taught to call it normal. Every second you spend near people who gave up on themselves, you lose a part of yourself. And the worst part is, you don't even notice it happening. It starts subtly. One sarcastic comment when you talk about your dreams. One eye roll when you try something new. One joke about how you've changed. And you laugh along, pretending it's nothing. But inside, a voice whispers, maybe they're right. You were born with fire, but fire needs oxygen. And most people around you, they suffocate it, not out of cruelty, out of fear. Your growth reminds them of everything they buried in themselves. Your ambition exposes their passivity. So they pull you down, not because they hate you, but because they can't stand seeing you rise. And you've learned to shrink, to make yourself palatable, to tone it down, to not be too much. Because being fully, you started to feel dangerous. That's the real reason you're stuck. Not because you're lazy or undisciplined, but because you're surrounded by people who chose to stay small. And you keep choosing them. Here's the truth. No one wants to say out loud. The wrong environment can make you betray yourself. Every single day, your values get diluted. Your focus scatters. Your energy gets drained by endless conversations that go nowhere. And then you wonder why you feel numb, uninspired, or lost. It's not depression. It's not lack of motivation. It's not your fault. You're reacting exactly how any nervous system would when it's constantly surrounded by stress, scarcity, and silent resentment. You're adapting. That's what humans do. We adapt to survive, even if it means killing parts of ourselves. But there's a price to pay for surviving where your soul is dying. One day, you wake up and don't recognize yourself. You've become who they needed you to be, not who you were meant to be. And the scariest part? It happened so gradually, you thought it was your choice. The people closest to you are either your fuel or your cage. They either light you up or slowly shut you down. And if you're honest, brutally honest, you already know which one it is. You've known for years. You just didn't want to deal with the consequences of that knowing. But avoiding that truth doesn't protect you. It traps you. Every excuse you make for staying, they're not that bad, they need me, I owe them, is another chain you wrap around your own potential. And potential buried for too long, it rots. There's a reason your body tenses when you enter certain rooms, a reason your mood drops after certain conversations, a reason you feel more alive alone than with your friends. Your nervous system is screaming for a way out, but your mind keeps calling it loyalty. Loyalty to people who don't believe in you. Loyalty to patterns that break you. Loyalty to versions of yourself that died a long time ago. That's not loyalty. That's self-abandonment. And if you don't interrupt that cycle, no book, no course, no therapist can save you. Because healing requires space. Growth needs breath. And you won't find either in a room full of people committed to staying asleep. By the end of this video, you'll understand why your pain isn't a curse. It's a wake-up call, a signal that your environment has expired and that the next version of your life can't begin until you finally choose to leave the ones who've already quit. Underneath every belief you have about yourself is a voice you didn't choose, a voice that was planted, slowly, consistently, and without your permission. Since the moment you opened your eyes to the world, you've been absorbing, watching, mirroring, and the people closest to you, They were the first programmers of your mind. Your family didn't just raise you. They installed belief systems in you about love, about success, about worth. If your parents struggled with money, they likely taught you fear around abundance. If they avoided conflict, you learned to suppress your voice. If they punished failure, you became terrified of trying. These programs weren't taught directly. They were absorbed. Like smoke in a room, they filled your lungs before you ever knew you were breathing them. And it didn't stop there. School added more code. Teachers who labeled you, classmates who mocked you, institutions that told you what success should look like. Then came culture, media, social expectations, friends who shamed you for dreaming too big, partners who needed you to stay small so they could feel enough, each layer adding more noise to your original signal. So here's the uncomfortable truth. Most of your current identity isn't you. It's a collage, a reflection of everything you've been exposed to, repeated long enough that you mistook it for truth. But truth and repetition are not the same. Just because you've heard "you're not good enough" 1,000 times doesn't make it real. And what makes this even more dangerous is that your environment doesn't just shape your thoughts, it shapes your nervous system, your actual biology. Being surrounded by stress, pessimism, gossip, victimhood, it wires your brain for survival, not growth. It teaches your body that safety means playing small, that peace means silence, that love means pleasing everyone but yourself. That's why, no matter how many books you read or podcasts you listen to, you feel stuck, because you're trying to reprogram a mind that still lives in the same toxic system. You're planting seeds of change in poisoned soil. The soil must change first. Otherwise, everything good you try to grow will die before it breaks the surface. And this doesn't just apply to you. If you're a parent watching this, understand something. Your child is not just learning from what you say. They're learning from who you let around them. If they grow up surrounded by people who complain, blame, give up, shrink, that becomes their default operating system. You are not just raising a child, you are shaping their future nervous system, their beliefs, their capacity for joy, for power, for life. If you're serious about change, you need to become a gatekeeper of your own mind, ruthless about what you allow in, protective of your inputs, because every word, every energy, every attitude, it leaves a fingerprint on your system. And that's why this moment matters. Because for the first time, you're not just being told to think positive or be strong. You're being shown the actual mechanism that's been running your life from the shadows. And when you see the machine, you can stop obeying it. If this resonates, if this feels like truth you've been waiting to hear, subscribe to the channel. Let the algorithm show this to others who are ready to wake up. And join the Telegram. We go deeper there, beyond the noise, into real tools and connection. And if you recognized yourself in these words, write in the comments, "I'm done running from pain." Let's see how many of us are done pretending. You can't heal in the same environment that made you sick. That's not a metaphor. It's biology. The people you surround yourself with shape your thoughts, influence your emotions, and dictate your standards without saying a single word. You start mimicking their tone, absorbing their beliefs, and justifying their limitations as your own. Over time, you stop questioning the dysfunction around you, and you start calling it normal life. If you're surrounded by people who constantly complain, your brain adapts to expect negativity. If your closest circle avoids responsibility, your mind lowers its standards for what's acceptable. If your daily conversations revolve around gossip, scarcity, and fear, guess what you start to think about when you're alone? You become what surrounds you. Not because you're weak, but because your brain is designed to adapt. And it will adapt to dysfunction just as easily as it will to greatness. This is the invisible damage most people never address. You can go to therapy, you can meditate, you can journal your heart out. But if you walk out of that session and spend the rest of your day with people who drag you back into survival mode, nothing sticks. Your nervous system resets itself to match the room. That's how strong the influence of environment is. Your system wants to belong, even if that means abandoning your truth to fit in. That's why you feel exhausted after being around certain people. It's not in your head. It's your body reacting to the emotional weight of forced connection. That's why you second-guess your goals after sharing them with the wrong person. It's not that your dreams are unrealistic. It's that you shared them with someone who's given up on theirs. Their fear contaminated your vision. Their doubt injected hesitation into your clarity. And now you carry questions that aren't even yours. And it's not always obvious. Sometimes it's not the aggressive critic who slows you down. It's the passive friend who never challenges you to grow. The ones who never say don't grow, but also never say you can. The ones who smile and nod while you talk, but offer nothing that fuels your fire. That kind of silent disapproval is even more dangerous because it wears the mask of support, and you stay loyal to it, not realizing it's quietly killing your momentum. The people closest to you should reflect the life you want to build, not the one you're trying to escape. If your environment doesn't stretch you, challenge you, or remind you of what's possible, then it's not neutral. It's dragging you backward. Energy is contagious. Beliefs are contagious. Mindsets are contagious. If you're not catching growth, you're catching stagnation. Most people stay stuck not because they lack talent or drive, but because they keep renewing their membership in rooms they've outgrown. Rooms filled with people who don't challenge their story, who reward mediocrity, who confuse comfort with connection. And deep down, they know it, but they stay, out of guilt, out of history, out of fear of being alone. But here's the truth. You're already alone if no one around you truly sees you. The most dangerous prison is one with invisible walls, and your environment, when chosen unconsciously, becomes that prison. It doesn't need bars. It just needs patterns, habits, expectations. That's how potential gets caged. Not with force, but with routine. You have to get honest. Are the people in your life reminders of who you were or mirrors of who you're becoming? Are they celebrating your growth or tolerating it? Are they lighting you up or wearing you down? The answers are uncomfortable, but clarity always is. And without it, you'll keep confusing proximity with intimacy, history with loyalty, comfort with safety. And the cost? Another year gone, another dream delayed, another version of you left unrealized. Let's stop pretending it's just about negativity. The people around you don't just influence your mood. They shape your self-worth. They define what you believe is possible for you. They either mirror your power or magnify your doubt. And if you're surrounded by people who live in fear, scarcity, and self-pity, that becomes your emotional baseline. Not because you choose it consciously, but because it's the emotional climate you breathe in every single day. When someone constantly tells you that life is hard, success is for the lucky, or you should just be grateful for what you have, it sounds harmless. But repetition builds identity. Eventually, you stop aiming higher. You start apologizing for wanting more. You shrink your desires to fit the comfort zones of those who never dared to expand theirs. You become emotionally polite, agreeable, cautious, silent, even when something inside you is screaming to be more. And when you do try to break free, to aim higher, to speak louder, to take risks, they'll call it a phase. They'll say you're overreacting, that you've changed. And the truth is, you have. Growth always looks like rebellion to those who've stopped growing. That's why so many people sabotage their own rise. Not because they fear failure, but because they fear losing connection with the only people they've ever known. But connection built on your silence isn't connection, it's dependency. If you have to hide parts of yourself to be accepted, you're not loved, you're managed. And that's the kind of emotional environment that leads to chronic self-doubt, inner conflict, and quiet resentment. It erodes your sense of clarity. You start asking permission for things you were born to claim. And slowly, you stop trusting your own voice. Your soul was not built for approval. It was built for expression. But expression requires space. Real space. Space to be misunderstood. Space to be different. Space to rise beyond what others have chosen for themselves. And most people won't give you that space, which is why you have to take it, or lose yourself trying to fit where you no longer belong. You've heard the stories, the ones where someone came from nothing, left everything behind, and built an entirely new life. Those stories aren't myths, they're case studies in the power of environment. Look at someone like Sylvester Stallone. Broke, rejected hundreds of times, sleeping on the street. He wrote Rocky and refused to sell it unless he could star in it. People told him he was insane, but he didn't take advice from the comfortable. He didn't surround himself with critics. He immersed himself in the energy of belief. Or take Arnold Schwarzenegger, born in a small village in Austria, surrounded by poverty and limitation. He didn't just train his body, he trained his mind by reading biographies of those who made it. He visualized himself in America, acting in movies, influencing the world, while everyone around him laughed. And then he left, not out of hatred, but out of clarity. He knew he couldn't become his future if he stayed loyal to his past. Jay-Z grew up in a housing project, surrounded by crime, addiction, and despair. But instead of normalizing it, he studied music, business, and branding. He aligned himself with people who thought differently, who saw opportunity where others saw chaos. That shift in environment didn't just change his surroundings, it changed his mindset. And from that mindset, he built an empire. These are not rare exceptions. They're reflections of what happens when you stop asking permission and start curating your atmosphere. Not every toxic person in your life is evil, but if they can't see beyond their own limits, they'll never let you expand yours. And it doesn't matter if they're friends, co-workers, even family. Proximity doesn't equal alignment. Sometimes the hardest growth is grieving people who are still alive. Because there's a truth most don't want to admit. You cannot become who you're meant to be while constantly managing the emotions of those who aren't ready to grow. You're not selfish for leaving them behind. You're responsible. Because if you don't, you'll end up resenting them, resenting yourself, and resenting a life that was never meant to be yours in the first place. The damage caused by the wrong people isn't always visible. It's not just broken dreams or missed opportunities, it's emotional erosion. Over time, they drain your self-belief drop by drop. You start doubting what used to feel clear. You begin questioning choices that once felt right. You lose access to your own inner voice because their noise has taken its place. That's not just influence, that's invasion. And if you don't recognize it early, you'll start calling it just life. It goes deeper than finances or motivation. The wrong environment damages your nervous system. It keeps you in a constant state of low-level stress. You're always anticipating judgment, always adjusting your energy to not trigger someone else's insecurity. That emotional tension shows up in your body. Fatigue, tension, brain fog, even illness. And because it happens gradually, you stop connecting the dots. You think you're the problem, when in reality, you're just poisoned by emotional exposure. Toxic people don't need to attack you directly. Sometimes all it takes is their consistent passivity, the subtle disapproval in their tone, the way they roll their eyes when you speak with passion, the way they pretend to support you, but never actually show up. And after a while, that subtle erosion becomes a deep crack. You stop dreaming as boldly. You stop speaking as loudly. You lower your standards so they can stay comfortable. And you call it peace. But peace without growth isn't peace. It's sedation. And sedation is not a life. It's a slow death. You weren't born to dim your light so others wouldn't feel exposed. You weren't built to carry the emotional weight of people who refuse to carry their own. And the longer you stay in rooms that dishonor who you are, the more you'll forget who that even is. Your environment should challenge you, stretch you, demand your best, not constantly ask you to water yourself down. It should reflect the future you're building, not the past you're trying to escape. And if it doesn't, then the most honest, loving, and powerful decision you can make is to leave, not with anger, not with drama, but with clarity, because your life depends on it. A healthy environment isn't just a comfort, it's a catalyst. It's the difference between surviving and becoming. When you surround yourself with people who believe in growth, who speak with clarity, who live with intention, everything inside you shifts. Your nervous system relaxes, your creativity awakens, your standards rise without force. You stop asking for permission to exist fully. You start remembering who you are, and more importantly, who you're capable of becoming. High-quality environments aren't reserved for the lucky. They're built one choice at a time. You can choose partners who hold you accountable instead of holding you back. You can choose friends who challenge your ideas instead of mocking your efforts. You can choose mentors, spaces, even digital content that reflect your future, not your fear. Your environment doesn't have to be perfect, it just has to be aligned. And when it is, life feels different. You make faster decisions. You take bolder action. You recover from setbacks quicker because you're not carrying dead weight. There's more energy, more clarity, more room to breathe. You stop living in reaction and start creating from vision. Self-doubt doesn't vanish, but it no longer controls you. Because now, you're not the only one fighting for your growth. You're in a space where your evolution is normalized, not questioned. This applies to everything: your home, your work, your relationships, even the thoughts you tolerate from yourself. Every input matters. Every interaction either expands you or contracts you. That's the power of your daily atmosphere. And the good news? You have a choice. You always have. Choice is the most underrated power you have. The ability to say, "This no longer serves me." The ability to walk away, to begin again, to choose energy that fuels you. Most people never use this power, not because they can't, but because they forget it exists. Don't forget. Don't wait for disaster to remember that your life is yours. You don't owe anyone your stagnation. You owe yourself your potential. And the people who are meant to be in your life, they won't resent your growth. They'll rise with it. If that speaks to something in you, subscribe to the channel. Let's help more people break free from the silence of smallness. And join the Telegram. That's where the real work happens, beyond distraction, beyond noise. And if this video shifted something in you, write in the comments, "I accept my shadow." Write it as a promise to yourself. Let's build a community of those who are done playing small. This is only the beginning.